fellow travelers, Mark here with Walter's World, and today we're answering your questions here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And today's topic is actually Italy, because yeah, why not talk about Italy when you're in Vancouver? And you may wonder, why am I talking about Italy here in Vancouver? Well, Vancouver is one of the most multicultural cities in the world, so I figured, hey, what better place when I'm here in North America than Vancouver to answer these questions? And so people send in a lot of questions about Italy, so I thought I'd do one that's really specifically answering those questions. So let's get started. Now, my first Italy question comes from Norman Gruner, and Norman writes, hey Mark, what's the best underrated city for Tuscany with his 15 and 17-year-old kids? Well, for me, one of the places I love staying in Tuscany is actually Lucca. And what's great about Lucca, you can use it as your base, and then you can do a day trip to Florence to go see the Accademia and go see David, or go to the museums there and see those things, the Duomo, but not have the super high prices and the super insane crowds that you have in Florence. So it does make a good base. Also, if you do want to go to Pisa and get your picture holding up the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it's another easy little train ride from there. It makes a good base. But also Lucca itself has great food, and also there's this big wall around the city you can go on, and there's a lot of biking options. Like you can rent bikes there and ride on the walls or ride through the countryside, and for a 15 to 17-year-old, that might be something more fun to do. But even if you're a little bit over 15 and 17, it is also a nice thing to do as well. So that would be my underrated Tuscany thing for you, okay? Now, staying in Tuscany, our next question is from Mark Kaiser, and Mark Kaiser writes, hey Mark, visiting Florence, is it worth it to do a guided tour, or can you suck it enough just from the experience of roaming the streets? Well, I think with this one, in Florence, you can really suck up a lot of culture and a lot of ambiance just by walking around. But what I say anytime with guided tours, if it's a place you really want to know a lot about, you really want to go in depth in, then yes, it is worth doing a guided tour, because you get so much more out of your visits if you have that guided tour. Now, I will say this, make sure you do your research and get a good guide, because there's a lot of bad guides out there and there's a lot of good guides out there. So if you get a good guide, it can make a good city a great experience, okay? So do look into that. But a city like Florence, there's so many guidebooks you can get, and there's walking tours you can do like on your mobile phone or whatever, or podcasts that do those things. You can do those as well. So it's kind of like a hit and miss thing, but I say if it's a place you really love, spend the money and get a good tour guide to really bring everything out of it, okay? Now, our next Italy question comes from Morgan Lund, and Morgan writes, hey, just wanting some inside tips on the Amalfi Coast. Okay, so if you're wondering where the Amalfi Coast is, it's south of Naples, okay? So if you're coming from Rome, you take the train into Naples, and then you take the Circumvesuvia, which is like the local train, down to Sorrento, then a bus, and you can go and see the Amalfi Coast and things like that. Most tourists pretty much stay in Sorrento as their base. That's kind of like the tourist base there, because it makes a good base because, one, you can take the train and go to Pompeii and see the ruins of Pompeii there, or if you want a smaller one, you can go to Herculaneum, which is a much more compact version, where Mount Vesuvius blew up and covered everything. You have those two things there. It's also Sorrento's where you take the ferry out to go to the Isle of Capri, so you can see the Blue Grotto and things like that. So that's kind of cool. Another thing I would warn you, if you're going to be staying like in Positano and those little on the Amalfi Coast, these towns are gorgeous. I mean, you should go there. They're gorgeous. But when you get around those towns, you're going to take a bus. And I like to call it the vomit bus, because the roads are like this and up and down and stuff, and it's really small, and every time, I'm not kidding, every time I've been on that bus, someone has thrown up on the bus. So that kind of sucks. So that's why sometimes if you're going to get a guide, maybe get a guide for the day to take you to some of those places so you don't have as many of the tummy troubles. So that would be something I'd say for Amalfi. Also, if you're going to be staying in Sorrento or on the Amalfi Coast and you're thinking, how much time should I spend in Naples? I spend more time on the Amalfi Coast than Naples. Naples, you can get most of the main sites in a day. There's a museum, castle, walkway, walking through. It's pretty cool, having the pizza, of course. But stay more on the Amalfi Coast when you are there, because it is really gorgeous. Job Anderson, Job Anderson, I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, writes, hey, what is the most overrated city in Italy? Well, I love Italy. We have tons of videos from it, and I love Italy to death, but I think probably the most overrated one, now some people say Venice. I don't agree with that. For me, it's Milan. And it's not that Milan doesn't have stuff to do. Milan's got, if you want shopping, if you want to get a job, if you want to experience clubbing and bars and restaurants, Milan is actually really cool. But for a tourist, when you hear Milan, you think, oh, it has as much stuff as Rome, because people say, oh, Rome, Milan, yeah. No. I say is not most overrated, but most disappointing is if you consider Milan like a Rome, you will be disappointed. Now there are cool things to see there. You know, going to the Duomo and walking on the ceiling, going to the Galleria and twirling around on the bowls, private parts to increase your virility, you know, having the food there. There is some cool stuff to do, but it does get kind of a letdown when you're expecting more. Also, if you're going to go to Milan and you want to see the Last Supper, you get a time ticket and you only get 15 minutes to look at it, and they're like, okay, get out. So do book that early if you're going to be going in the summer. So that's why Milan kind of is the most overrated. It's still worth visiting, but it's not as high on my list as other places out there. Now, our last question from Italy we have is from SNWM19. And the question is it worth it to leave Rome to see Tuscany and the wine fields? Yes, it is. If you get a chance to get out of Rome, go for it. I mean, Rome is fantastic. I would live there. I'd move there like that. No problem. But the thing is, it's a city and you have the Roman history that's there. But there's so much more to Italy and Rome than just ancient Rome. So if you get a chance to go out to the Tuscan fields and go see the wineries or go see a city like Florence or go into Lucca or something like that, take that opportunity. Go out and explore so you don't just see the big city, because there is a difference from visiting a big Italian city to visiting a small Italian village, okay? They're both fantastic, but in very, very different ways. Anyway, I hope this helped. Thank you to everybody that's sending questions about visiting Italy. I'm trying to get our What to Know About Italy video finished. There's been little issues with the rendering, but we're going to get it there so we can get it out for you. But if you want to learn more, things you don't do when you go to Italy, things you don't do when you go to Rome, the things that'll shock you, or the things you love and hate about many places throughout Italy, check us out on our website at waltersworld.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we really appreciate your likes, subscriptions, and we hope you have a great time in Italy or here in Vancouver, wherever you may be. Bye from Vancouver.